The Mafia boss hadn't slept in 30 years. One night with the poor girl finally put him to sleep, he married her. The rain hammered against the penthouse windows like gunfire, each drop a reminder that the city never forgave. In the dim glow of a single desk lamp, Dominic Moetti sat motionless, his broad shoulders hunched, eyes bloodshot and unblinking. 30 years. 30 endless years since sleep had last claimed him. Not a single night of real rest since the night his father was gunned down in front of him at 14. The screams still echoed in his skull, the blood still warm on his hands as he'd held the old man's head and promised vengeance. That promise had built an empire, but it had also stolen his peace forever. Tonight was worse than most. His heart pounded too hard, his thoughts raced too fast, and the shadows in the corners seemed to move with purpose. He pressed the heel of his hand against his temple, trying to force the exhaustion to take him, but it never did. It only watched from a distance, mocking. Downstairs, in the service elevator no one was supposed to use after midnight, a young woman clutched a worn mop bucket, her knuckles white. Elena Rossi had taken this night cleaning job in the Moetti Tower because the pay was triple anywhere else and her little brother's hospital bills weren't going to pay themselves. She was 24, bone-tired, and terrified of the rumors about the man who owned the building. They said he never slept. They said he could kill with a glance. They said no one ever saw him smile. The elevator dinged on the top floor. Elena froze. The doors slid open to an empty, silent hallway. She was only supposed to clean the executive lounge 2 floors down, but the schedule had changed last minute. Someone had scrawled penthouse, urgent on her assignment sheet. Her stomach twisted. No one went to the penthouse. Ever. She pushed her cart forward anyway, because quitting wasn't an option. Inside the vast office, Dominic heard the faint squeak of wheels. His hand moved instinctively to the drawer where his gun waited. He rose silently, all 6'3" of him coiled like a predator, and stepped into the shadows. Elena opened the double doors with trembling hands, expecting darkness. Instead, she saw him, standing there like a statue carved from night itself, watching her with eyes that had seen too much death. She gasped, the mop handle clattering against the cart. Dominic's voice cut through the air, low and lethal. "Who sent you?" "Hey, beautiful souls, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new here. I'm so glad you're joining me for this one. Wherever you're watching from tonight, curled up in bed, on the couch with a cup of tea, maybe sneaking a late-night story at work, drop a comment below and tell me where you are right now. How are you feeling? I hope this story wraps around you like a warm blanket, even when it gets intense. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss how this ends. Trust me." Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. She couldn't run, the doors were too far. She couldn't lie, those eyes would see through it. So she did the only thing she could think of, she told the truth. "No one sent me, sir. I'm just the cleaner. They changed my floor tonight. I can come back later." Dominic studied her. Small, soaked from the rain, dark hair plastered to her face, clothes threadbare but clean. No threat. No wire. No fierce smell of an assassin. Just exhaustion. And something else, something gentle in her wide brown eyes that made his chest ache in a way he hadn't felt in decades. He should have sent her away. Instead, he heard himself say, "Stay." What was he doing? Elena swallowed. "Sir." He turned back toward his desk, the weight of 30 sleepless years pressing down harder than ever. "Just clean. Quietly." But as she moved around the room, picking up scattered papers, wiping dust from shelves he never noticed, something shifted in the air. Her presence was soft, unthreatening. She hummed under her breath, an old lullaby their mothers both knew, though neither realized it yet. Dominic sat again, watching her reflection in the dark window. For the first time in 30 years, his eyelids grew heavy. And then the real question hit him like a bullet he never saw coming. What if one night with this stranger, this poor girl with the quiet voice, was all it took to finally break the curse that had kept him awake since he was a boy? Stick with me, loves, because what happens next will shatter everything Dominic thought he knew about himself. Drop a red heart hash in the comments if you're already hooked, and let's dive deeper together. Elena's hands shook as she wiped the glass shelf. She could feel him watching her, those dark, sleepless eyes tracking every movement like she was the only living thing in a room full of ghosts. The air between them thickened with every breath she took, heavy with rain and something far more dangerous. The quiet recognition that they were both broken in ways the other could sense without words. She risked a glance over her shoulder. Dominic hadn't moved from his chair. His suit jacket was slung over the armrest, sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with old scars and new attention. His tie hung loose, as if he'd tried to strangle the exhaustion out of himself and failed. His hair, black as midnight, fell slightly across his forehead, and for a second she imagined brushing it back. The thought made her cheeks burn. She turned away quickly, focusing on the shelf. But her mind wouldn't let go. She had heard the stories. Dominic Moetti, the untouchable king of the city's underworld, the man who never slept because sleeping meant letting his guard down. Sleeping meant weakness. Sleeping meant death. Yet here he was, letting a nobody like her into his private world at 2 a.m. "Why do you do it?" His voice broke the silence, low and rough, like gravel under boots. Elena froze. "Do what, sir?" "Work nights. Clean for men like me. You're too young for this life." She set the cloth down slowly. "My brother is sick. Leukemia. The treatments cost more than I make in a year at any other job. So I take the night shifts no one else wants. The ones that pay triple." Dominic's jaw tightened. He knew the cost of sickness. He'd watched his mother waste away from cancer when he was 12, powerless while his father built an empire to pay the medical bills that never saved her. The memory still tasted like ash. "And you're not afraid?" he asked. "Of what?" She met his gaze for the first time without flinching. "The stories? The guns? The fact that people disappear when they cross you?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he rose and crossed the room in 3 long strides, stopping just close enough that she could smell his cologne, sandalwood and smoke, and feel the heat radiating from his body. He reached past her to pick up a crystal decanter from the shelf she'd been cleaning. His arm brushed hers. Not a full touch, just a graze of sleeve against sleeve, but it sent a shock through her like static before a storm. Elena's breath caught. She didn't move away. "I'm afraid of everything," she whispered. "But fear doesn't pay the bills." Dominic set the decanter down without pouring. His fingers lingered near hers on the shelf, inches apart. "You shouldn't be here," he said, but the words sounded more like a confession than a warning. "Then why did you tell me to stay?" He looked down at her, really looked. At the dark circles under her eyes that mirrored his own. At the stubborn set of her jaw that said she'd fight the world for her brother. At the way her lips parted slightly when she was nervous, like she was holding back 1,000 things she wanted to say. "Because," he said, voice dropping to a near whisper, "for the first time in 30 years, the silence in this room doesn't feel like a grave." Elena's heart hammered so loud she was sure he could hear it. She should have stepped back. She should have grabbed her cart and run. Instead she lifted her chin, meeting those haunted eyes with a spark of her own. "Then maybe you need someone to make the silence bearable." The words hung between them, reckless and raw. Dominic's gaze dropped to her mouth for 1 heartbeat, 2, then snapped back up. His hand flexed at his side, as if fighting the urge to touch her. "You don't know what you're offering," he said. "I'm not offering anything," she replied, but her voice trembled. "I'm just here." And in that moment, the distance between them felt like the most dangerous thing in the world. Dominic had spent 3 decades building walls of power, fear, and sleepless nights. He had lovers, brief, transactional, never staying past sunrise. He had enemies who wanted him dead. He had an empire that demanded he never show weakness. But he had never had someone look at him like Elena did. Not as a monster, not as a king, but as a man who might still be saved. And Elena? She had spent her life taking care of everyone else, her dying mother, her sick brother, the endless bills. She had never let herself want anything for herself. Never let herself dream of a man who looked at her like she was the only light left in his darkness. Yet here she was, standing inches from a mafia boss who could ruin her life with a word, and all she could think was how badly she wanted him to close the gap. He didn't. Not yet. But neither did he move away. The rain outside softened to a steady patter, matching the rhythm of their breathing. The clock on the wall ticked past 3 a.m. Neither noticed. "Hey, sweethearts, are you feeling that pull yet? That slow-burning tension that makes your heart race? Drop a fire in the comments if you're already rooting for these two to give in." And if you're loving this story so far, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell so you never miss the moment everything changes. I promise, it's coming soon. The clock edged toward 4 a.m., and the rain had turned into a relentless roar against the glass. Elena had finished cleaning every surface in the vast office, but she hadn't left. She couldn't. Every time she moved toward the door, Dominic's gaze pulled her back like gravity, silent, undeniable. He hadn't spoken in almost an hour. He just watched her, elbows on the arms of his chair, fingers steepled, the exhaustion in his face deepening with every passing minute. Elena pretended to reorganize her cart, stealing glances at him. The man looked like he was drowning on dry land. Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore. "You haven't blinked in 10 minutes, she said softly. A faint, humorless smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Occupational hazard. Elena stepped closer, close enough that the faint scent of lemon cleaner on her hands mingled with his cologne. "When was the last time you actually slept, Mr. Moetti?" The use of his last name made his eyes darken. Don't what? Call me that. Not you." She tilted her head. "Then what should I call you?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pushed up from the chair with a weariness that seemed to pain him physically. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, staring out at the storm-lashed city he owned in every way except the one that mattered. 30 years ago, he said at last, voice raw. "I was 14. My father was executed in our driveway. I held him while he bled out. I haven't slept since. Not really. A few minutes here and there, maybe. Never more." Elena's throat tightened. She crossed the room until she stood just behind him, close enough to see the reflection of her own face beside his in the glass. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be." He turned to face her, and the space between them shrank to nothing but breath and heartbeat. "Pity is useless." "It isn't pity." She lifted her hand, hesitated, then let her fingertips rest lightly on his forearm. The muscle beneath his sleeve jumped at the contact. "It's recognition. I know what it's like to carry something that won't let you rest." Dominic stared at her hand on his skin as if it were a miracle he didn't deserve. Slowly, agonizingly, he covered her fingers with his own. The touch was featherlight, but it burned through both of them like wildfire. "Stay," he said again, the word ragged this time. "Just sit with me. 5 minutes. I don't want to be alone with it tonight." Elena should have said no. She should have remembered who he was, what he was. Instead, she nodded. He led her to the wide leather couch in the corner of the office, the one no one ever sat on. They sat side by side, not touching now, but near enough that their shoulders almost brushed. The silence stretched, thick and trembling. Then, without thinking, Elena began to hum again, that same soft lullaby from earlier. The one her mother used to sing when the chemo nights were too long and too painful. Dominic's head slowly tipped back against the couch. His eyes fluttered. "Don't stop," he murmured. So she didn't. She sang the words this time, voice low and trembling, the Italian verses her mother had taught her. About a weary traveler finding shelter in the arms of someone kind. Minutes passed. 5, 10, 15. Dominic's breathing slowed. Deepened. And then, impossibly, his head drifted sideways until it rested against her shoulder. Elena froze, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. She could feel the weight of him, the warmth, the faint tremor in his body as exhaustion finally won. He was asleep. For the first time in 30 years, Dominic Moetti was asleep, because of her. Tears pricked her eyes. She didn't dare shift, didn't dare wake him. Instead, she let her cheek rest gently against the top of his head, her hand finding his where it lay on his thigh. Their fingers laced together instinctively. Outside, dawn began to creep over the skyline, painting the storm clouds gold. But the real storm was just beginning. Because at that exact moment, the private elevator chimed. The doors slid open. A man stepped out, tall, immaculate suit, silver hair, eyes like winter. Vincent Russo, Dominic's consigliere and the only person alive with unrestricted access to the penthouse. He took in the scene, his boss, untouchable, invincible Dominic Moetti, asleep on a stranger's shoulder like a child. The poor cleaning girl with tears on her cheeks and her hand clasped in his. Vincent's face hardened. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded, voice low and lethal. Elena's heart stopped. Dominic stirred but didn't wake. I'm just the cleaner, she stammered. Vincent pulled out his phone. You have 5 seconds to explain why I shouldn't have you removed permanently before he wakes up. Panic surged through her. She knew what removed permanently meant in this world. But Dominic's fingers tightened around hers even in sleep, as if his subconscious refused to let her go. And then Vincent's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and went very, very still. Boss, he said sharply. Dominic jolted awake, instantly alert, instinctively pulling Elena behind him as he stood. His eyes were clearer than they'd been in decades, but wild with protective fury. What? He growled. Vincent held out the phone. It's Luca. He says the Vitali family just put a hit out. Open contract. 5 million on your head. Effective immediately. The air in the room turned to ice. Dominic's gaze snapped to Elena. In one heartbeat, everything changed. She had seen him vulnerable. She had seen him sleep. She knew his greatest weakness now. In his world, that made her either the most precious thing he'd ever touched, or the most dangerous. And the city was about to go to war over which one she would be. Hey, loves, did you feel that shift? The second everything went from impossible tenderness to life or death stakes? Drop a face screaming in fear in the comments if your heart is racing right now. If you're on the edge of your seat wanting to know what Dominic does next, how far he'll go to protect her, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because the next part is where it all explodes. The penthouse safe room was colder than a morgue and twice as quiet. Dominic had carried Elena here himself, brideless style, one arm under her knees, the other around her back, moving so fast she hadn't even had time to protest. Vincent sealed the steel door behind them with a hiss that sounded like a coffin closing. Now they were alone. Elena's back pressed against the wall, pulse racing in her throat. Dominic stood 3 feet away, gun in his hand, eyes scanning the security feeds like a wolf counting threats. $5 million. That was her price now. Anyone who brought her to the Vitali family alive got paid. Anyone who brought Dominic dead got double. Say something, she whispered. He didn't look at her. I'm getting you out of the city tonight. Private jet. New name. Enough money to disappear forever. The words hit her like ice water. You're sending me away. Her voice cracked. After what just happened on that couch. Dominic's jaw flexed so hard she heard it. That's exactly why. You made me sleep, Elena. For the first time in 30 years I closed my eyes and didn't dream of blood. Do you know what that makes you? She shook her head. A weapon, he said brutally. They'll cut you apart to keep me weak. They'll use you to break me. I won't let that happen. He finally turned. The raw fury in his eyes stole her breath. So I'm sending you somewhere they'll never find you. Elena stepped forward until the gun in his hand nearly touched her chest. And what about you? You think you'll go back to not sleeping? To dying one sleepless night at a time? I've survived worse. No, she said, voice trembling with rage and something fiercer. You've existed. There's a difference. She reached up and took the gun from his hand. He let her. She set it on the steel table, then placed both palms on his chest, felt the thunder of his heart beneath the expensive shout. I'm not leaving you to rot in your own nightmare, Dominic Moetti. Not after you finally found the door out. His hands came up to grip her wrists, not to push her away, but to hold on like she was the only real thing in his collapsing world. You don't get it, he rasped. If you stay, you die. If I keep you, I damn you. Then damn me, she said, and kissed him. It wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was 30 years of starvation crashing into 5 seconds of contact. His mouth took hers like a man possessed, hard, desperate, teeth scraping, tongue demanding entry. Elena moaned into him, fingers twisting in his hair, pulling him closer even as her mind screamed that this was suicide. Dominic lifted her without breaking the kiss, hands sliding under her thighs, pressing her back to the wall. Her legs wrapped around his waist instinctively. The thin fabric of her uniform skirt rode up, his belt buckle bit into her hip. Neither cared. He tore his mouth away only to drag it down her throat, biting the pulse point that fluttered wildly for him. Elena, he growled against her skin, tell me to stop. Tell me now, or I swear to God I'll take you right here against this wall and never let you go. She answered by rolling her hips against him, drawing a tortured groan from deep in his chest. Don't you dare stop, she breathed. I want all of you. The monster, the man, the nightmare, give it to me. His control snapped. Clothes tore. Buttons scattered across the concrete floor like gunfire. He carried her to the narrow cot in the corner, the one meant for siege nights, and laid her down like she was both fragile and unbreakable. Their first time was fast and brutal and perfect. He entered her in one deep thrust that made her cry out his name. She clawed at his back, urging him harder, deeper, as if she could fuck the insomnia right out of him. He obliged, hips slamming into hers, mouth swallowing every moan, every gasp, every broken plea. When she came, it was with his name on her lips and tears on her cheeks. When he followed seconds later, he buried his face in her neck and whispered something that sounded a lot like mine. Afterward, they lay tangled and sweating, hearts hammering in unison. Dominic traced lazy circles on her bare hip, eyes already heavier than she'd ever seen them. Stay with me, he murmured, voice drugged with impending sleep. Just, stay. Elena kissed his forehead. Always. But the monitors on the wall flickered red. Vincent's voice crackled through the intercom. Boss. They're in the building. 20 men, maybe more. They've got RPGs. We've got minutes. Dominic was on his feet in an instant, pulling Elena up with him, shielding her body with his. He dressed her with shaking hands, his own shirt over her torn uniform, his jacket around her shoulders. Listen to me, he said, cupping her face. There's a service elevator behind the false panel. Vincent will get you to the roof. Helicopters waiting. You go without me. No tears streamed down her face. Not happening. Elena. I said no. She grabbed his face, kissed him hard. We do this together or not at all. For one endless second he looked at her, really looked, like she was the only thing worth dying for. Then he smiled. A real one. The first in 30 years. Together, then. He took her hand, grabbed the gun, and kicked open the safe room door. The hallway was already filling with smoke and muzzle flashes. Dominic pulled her behind him and started shooting. Hey, my loves, are you okay? Because I'm not. That was raw, wasn't it? That was two broken souls deciding the world can burn as long as they burn together. Drop a I'm not okay in the comments if you felt that in your chest. And if you're screaming at your screen for what happens next, hit that subscribe button right now, because the next part is the midpoint explosion that will wreck you in the best way. Gunfire echoed through the corridors like thunder in a tin box. Dominic moved like a shadow made of violence, every shot precise, every step calculated, pulling Elena behind him with his free hand locked around hers. Bodies dropped. Blood painted the marble floors. Vincent and 3 of his most trusted men flanked them, forming a deadly wedge toward the private garage. But there were too many. The Vitali soldiers poured in from every stairwell, every elevator. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to end the Moetti line tonight. Dominic shoved Elena into the armored SUV, slamming the door just as bullets spiderwebbed the bulletproof glass. He dove into the driver's seat, Vincent in the passenger, the remaining 2 men piling into the back. Tires screeched as they roared out of the garage into the rain-slick streets. Elena's ears rang. Her hands shook in her lap, Dominic's blood, someone else's, she prayed, smeared across her fingers where she'd gripped his shirt. Where are we going? She asked, voice barely audible over the engine. Safe house, Dominic said through gritted teeth. North End. Old winery. No one knows about it. Vincent was silent, reloading his weapon with mechanical calm. They lost the first tail after 3 blocks of insane driving, Dominic taking corners on 2 wheels, running red lights, using every trick he'd learned surviving this city. But more cars appeared. Black sedans with tinted windows. Professional. Relentless. Halfway across the bridge, an RPG slammed into the support pillar ahead. The explosion rocked the SUV. Dominic swerved, barely keeping them on the road. We're not going to make it to the winery, Vincent said quietly. Dominic's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. His eyes met Elena's in the rearview mirror, wild, desperate, full of things he hadn't said yet. Then we go to ground, he said. Old tunnels under the theater district. I'll get her out on foot. You 2 draw them off. Vincent turned in his seat. Boss. That's an order. Silence. Then Vincent nodded once. They screeched into an abandoned underground parking structure. Dominic killed the lights, coasted to a stop behind a concrete pillar. He turned to Elena. Listen to me. His voice was low, urgent. There's a service door on the east side. Leads to the old subway maintenance tunnels. Follow the red pipes north for 6 blocks. Comes out near St. Agnes Church. There'll be a car waiting, keys under the wheel well. Blue sedan. You drive west until you hit the coast. Don't stop. Don't look back. Tears filled her eyes. You're saying goodbye. I'm saying live. He reached back, cupped her face, kissed her once, deep, fierce, tasting of blood and gunpowder and goodbye. Then he opened the door. But Elena grabbed his arm. No. Elena. I said no. She climbed over the seat into the front, straddling his lap before he could stop her. Her hands framed his face. You don't get to decide this for me. Not after you finally slept. Not after you looked at me like I was your whole world. Vincent cleared his throat. We've got maybe 90 seconds. Dominic looked tormented. They'll kill you to hurt me. Then let them try. She kissed him again, soft this time. But they'll have to go through both of us. Something broke open in his eyes. He nodded once. Vincent smiled grimly. Stubborn girl. I like her. They moved as a unit, out of the SUV, into the shadows, guns ready. The tunnels were dark, damp, echoing with distant drips and their own ragged breathing. Half a mile in, footsteps echoed behind them. Too many. Dominic pushed Elena behind him. When I say run, you run. She didn't answer. They rounded a corner, and walked straight into an ambush. 10 men. Automatic weapons. Vincent went down first, bullet to the shoulder, then the chest. He hit the ground hard, blood bubbling from his lips. Dominic roared, firing wildly, taking down 3 before they tackled him. Elena screamed. Rough hands grabbed her, zip ties biting into her wrists. A voice she didn't recognize spoke from the darkness. Well, the sleeper finally wakes, and falls for the bait. The man stepped into the dim emergency light. Mid-40s. Expensive suit. Cruel smile. Enzo Vitali, the head of the rival family himself. Dominic thrashed against the men holding him, eyes murderous. Enzo walked slowly toward Elena, lifted her chin with 2 fingers. Pretty thing, he murmured. No wonder he risked everything. Then he turned to Dominic. You know, I almost respected you. 30 years without sleep? That's discipline. That's strength. But one night with a poor little cleaner, he gestured at Elena, and you on your knees. Dominic spat blood. Touch her and I'll burn your entire bloodline to ash. Enzo laughed. Oh, I'm not going to touch her. Not yet. He pulled out a phone. Dialed. Bring him in. Another figure emerged from the shadows, hooded, hands bound. The hood was yanked off. Elena's breath stopped. It was her brother. Nico, pale, thin from the leukemia treatments, eyes wide with terror. Nico, she whispered. He looked at her, tears streaming. I'm sorry, Lena. They said they'd pay for everything, the treatments, the transplant, if I helped them. They said they just wanted to talk to Moetti. I didn't know. Enzo smiled wider. Here's the thing, Dominic. Your little miracle girl? Her brother's been on my payroll for 6 months. Feeding me your schedules. Your roots. Your weaknesses. He leaned close to Dominic's ear. She didn't cure your insomnia by accident. She was sent to get close. To make you vulnerable. To make you sleep, so we could strike when you were weak. Dominic went very still. He turned slowly to look at Elena. The betrayal in his eyes was worse than any bullet. Elena. His voice broke on her name. Tell me it's not true. She was sobbing now, shaking her head violently. No, Dominic, I swear, I didn't know, he never told me, he said he had a job, that someone was helping with the bills, I didn't know it was you. But the doubt was already there. Everything they'd shared, the couch, the kiss, the safe room, the promises, poisoned now. Enzo laughed again. Take them both, he ordered. We'll make him watch while we break her. Then we end him. Dominic's eyes met Elena's one last time. And in that moment, the man who hadn't slept in 30 years looked like he finally understood true waking nightmare. Hey, beautiful souls. Did that just shatter your heart into a million pieces? Because mine is on the floor. The betrayal. The misunderstanding. The love hanging by a thread. Drop a broken heart in the comments if you're crying with me right now. And if you need to know how they survive this, how love fights through the darkest lie, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. Because the next part is where hope crawls out of the grave. The Vitali warehouse stank of rust, salt water, and despair. Elena and Dominic were chained to opposite walls in a cavernous room lit only by a single swinging bulb. Nico, her brother, was slumped in a corner, guarded by two men, his face swollen from the beating he'd taken for failing to warn Enzo about Dominic's change in routine tonight. Hours had passed. Or maybe days. Time lost, meaning when hope was bleeding out on concrete. Dominic hadn't looked at her once since they'd been dragged in. He hung from his chains, head down, blood dripping from a split lip, shirt torn open across his chest where they'd worked him over with fists and batons. But the real damage wasn't physical. It was the silence. The betrayal he believed. Elena's wrists were raw from struggling. Her voice was hoarse from screaming his name. Dominic, she tried again, barely above a whisper. Please. Look at me. He didn't. Enzo had left them to marinate, as he'd put it. He'd promised to return at dawn to finish the job, slowly. He wanted Dominic awake for every second of Elena's pain. He wanted to watch the sleepless king finally break. Footsteps echoed. Not Enzo. One of his lieutenants, big, scarred, grinning. He walked straight to Elena. Boss says I can have a taste before the main event, he sneered, reaching for her face. Dominic's head snapped up. The chains rattled as he lunged forward, arms straining, veins bulging in his neck. Touch her, he roared, voice like gravel and thunder, and I'll rip your throat out with my teeth. The man laughed, but backed off a step. Dominic's reputation still carried weight, even chained. But the rage in Dominic's eyes wasn't just for the guard. It was for her. Elena felt it like a knife. Nico, she called weakly to her brother. Tell him the truth. Nico lifted his head, tears cutting tracks through the blood on his cheeks. I took the money, he sobbed. They approached me in the hospital. Said they'd cover every treatment, every experimental drug. I didn't know it was Moetti they were after. I swear, Lena, I didn't know that you'd meet him. I just wanted you to stop working yourself to death. Dominic's laugh was bitter, broken. So the poor little family needed saving, he said, finally turning his gaze on Elena. Cold. Dead. And I was the perfect mark. 30 years of insomnia. One soft girl with a lullaby and I dropped my guard like a fool. No, Elena cried. Dominic, no. I didn't know. I've never taken a cent from them. I've never even met them before tonight. He looked away again. You were in my penthouse at 4 a.m. You got me to sleep. And 6 hours later, they hit every safe house I have. You expect me to believe that's coincidence? Elena's heart shattered. I expect you to believe me, she whispered. Because I love you. The words hung in the air like smoke. Dominic closed his eyes. His body sagged against the chains. Don't, he said quietly. Don't say that. Not now. The guard laughed again and left, slamming the door behind him. Silence fell heavier than before. Elena's tears fell unchecked. I held you while you slept, she said to the dark. I felt your heart slow against mine. You breathed my name in your sleep, Dominic. If that was all a lie, then I don't want to live anyway. He didn't respond. Hours crawled by. Nico passed out from pain and exhaustion. Dominic's head hung lower and lower. And Elena realized the cruelest truth. The man who hadn't slept in 30 years was finally slipping into unconsciousness, not from peace, but from blood loss and despair. She watched his chest rise and fall slower, slower. Dominic, she stammered, panic rising. Stay with me. Please. Don't you dare leave me here alone. No answer. The bulb flickered. Dawn was coming. Enzo was coming. And the man she loved, the man who had finally found sleep in her arms, was dying in chains, believing she'd betrayed him. Elena screamed until her voice gave out. There was no hope left. Only darkness. Hey, My beautiful broken souls. Are you crying? Because I am. This is the moment where everything feels lost. Where love isn't enough. Where the world wins. Drop a loudly crying face in the comments if you're as devastated as I am. And if you're begging, for these two to find their way back to each other, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because the next part, the turning point, is where light finally breaks through. I promise. The bulb flickered one last time and died. Pitch blackness swallowed the warehouse. Elena's sobs echoed in the void, raw and ragged, each one tearing from her chest like shrapnel. She couldn't see Dominic anymore, but she could hear him, his breathing shallow, wet, fading. Dominic, she choked out, voice shredded. Please, don't leave me. Not like this. Not believing I betrayed you. Silence. Then a faint rasp. Elena. Her heart lurched. I'm here. I'm right here. Another labored breath. Cold. Tears streamed down her face, hot against the chill of the room. I know, baby. I know. Just stay with me. Stay awake. She yanked against her chains until skin tore and blood ran warm down her forearms. The pain was nothing compared to the agony in her soul. I love you, she whispered fiercely into the dark. I love you so much it hurts to breathe. I didn't know about Nico. I didn't know about any of it. The only truth I have is you. You slept in my arms, Dominic. You let me hold your broken pieces. That was real. That was us. A long pause. Then the smallest sound, a broken exhale that might have been her name. Elena leaned toward it, chains cutting deeper. Remember the couch? Remember how you rested your head on my shoulder like you'd been waiting your whole life for it? You said my name in your sleep. You said stay. I'm staying. I'm never leaving you. She began to sing again, the lullaby. Voice cracking, off-key from crying, but steady. Every note poured every ounce of love she had into the darkness, straight to him. Verse after verse. Until something shifted. A low groan. Chains rattling. Elena, stronger this time. I'm here, she sobbed. I'm right here. Need to see you. The desperation in his voice broke her all over again. Suddenly, footsteps outside. Muffled voices. Not Enzo's men. Different. A metallic clink. The lock turning. The door creaked open. Flashlights pieced the dark. Elena squinted against the glare. 3 figures in the doorway, 2 men she didn't recognize, 1 woman. The woman stepped forward. Sophia Moetti, Dominic's younger sister, the one he'd protected from the life by sending her away to college and never letting her come back. She looked at the scene, her brother hanging limp, Elena bleeding and singing through tears, Nico unconscious in the corner, and her face crumpled. Jesus Christ, she whispered. She rushed to Dominic first, cutting his chains with bolt cutters. He collapsed into her arms, barely conscious. Dom, look at me. His eyes fluttered open. Glassy. Unfocused. Sophia turned to Elena, eyes blazing with tears and fury. You're the girl, she said. The one who made him sleep. Elena could only nod, sobbing too hard to speak. Sophia cut Elena's chains next. The moment her arms were free, Elena stumbled across the room and fell to her knees beside Dominic. He was cold. So cold. She pulled him into her lap, cradling his head against her chest, rocking him like a child. I've got you, she whispered over and over. I've got you. You're safe now. Dominic's hand, shaking, blood slick, lifted slowly to touch her face. Real, he rasped. All real, she cried, pressing her lips to his knuckles. Every second. Every touch. Every heartbeat. I love you, Dominic Moetti. I love you with everything I am. His eyes surged hairs in the flashlight beams. And then, miraculously, the doubt cracked. He saw it. The truth shining through her tears. Elena, his voice broke completely. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I doubted. She kissed his forehead, his eyelids, his lips, soft, reverent. Just live. Just come back to me. Sophia knelt beside them, pressing a cloth to the worst of his wounds. I found out Enzo was moving tonight, she said quietly. Vincent got a message out before he died. Told me where they'd taken you. I called in every favor Dad ever had left. We're getting you out. One of the men handed her a syringe. Adrenaline and coagulant. It'll keep him awake long enough. Sophia injected it into Dominic's arm. His body jerked. Eyes flying open. Breath gasping in. Then he looked at Elena, really looked, and something fierce and alive ignited in his gaze. He reached up, cupped her tear-streaked face with both hands. Together, he said, voice rough but strong. Together, she echoed. He pulled her down and kissed her, deep, desperate, pouring 30 years of loneliness and one night of salvation into it. When they broke apart, foreheads pressed together, he whispered, "Marry me." Elena laughed through her sobs. "You're half dead and proposing." "Been dead for 30 years, he said. "You brought me back. Marry me, Elena Rossi. Let me spend the rest of my life sleeping beside you." "Yes," she breathed. 1,000 times yes. Sophia smiled through tears. "Save it for after we get out of here." The men helped Dominic to his feet. He swayed, but stood, leaning heavily on Elena. She wrapped her arm around his waist, taking his weight without hesitation. They moved as one toward the door. Behind them, Sophia cut Nico loose too. "He comes with us," Elena said firmly. "His family." Dominic nodded once. No hesitation. As they stepped into the cold pre-dawn air, gunfire erupted in the distance, Enzo's men realizing too late that their prisoners were gone. But Dominic Moetti was awake now. Awake, alive, and in love. And hell itself couldn't stop him from protecting what was his. "Hey, my beautiful, beautiful souls. Are you breathing again?" Because that was the moment hope clawed its way back from the grave. That was love refusing to die. Drop a in the comments if you felt your heart start beating again with theirs. If you're ready to see Dominic unleash holy hell to protect his future wife, smash that subscribe button and turn on the bell. Because the climax is coming, and it's going to be glorious. The sun had barely crested the horizon when Dominic's convoy rolled up to Enzo Vitali's waterfront compound. 6 black SUVs, engines growling like wolves finally unleashed. Dominic stepped out first. He was still pale from blood loss, stitches pulling under his shirt, but his eyes burned with a fire that hadn't existed in 30 years. Elena was right beside him, hand locked in his, refusing to stay behind. Sophia flanked his other side, Nico, bandaged and silent, bringing up the rear with the remaining men. Enzo's guards saw them coming and opened fire immediately. Dominic didn't flinch. He walked straight into the storm of bullets, gun in one hand, Elena's fingers in the other, returning fire with lethal precision. Men dropped. Gates exploded open under RPG fire from his own crew. They breached the main house in under 4 minutes. Inside, marble floors and crystal chandeliers, opulence bought with blood. Enzo waited in the grand foyer, flanked by his last 20 loyal soldiers. He clapped slowly as Dominic entered. "Bravo," Enzo sneered. "The sleepless king finally wakes up, and brings his whore to the slaughter." Dominic's smile was ice. "Call her that again," he said quietly, "and I'll make you beg for the bullet." Elena squeezed his hand once. A silent reminder, we're here together. Enzo laughed. "You're outnumbered, half dead, and sentimental. This ends now." He raised his hand to signal the attack. But the front doors behind Dominic burst open again. More men poured in, dozens of them. Old allies. Families Enzo had betrayed over the years. Captains who'd waited for a sign that Dominic Moetti was still the man who'd once united the city. They'd gotten the call from Sofia at dawn. The tide turned in seconds. Gunfire erupted, deafening, chaotic. Dominic pulled Elena behind a marble pillar, shielding her with his body as bullets chipped stone around them. "Stay low," he ordered. "Not a chance," she shot back, pulling the pistol Sophia had given her. Side by side, they fought. Dominic took a graze to the shoulder, grunted but kept moving. Elena fired twice, dropped a man who'd been aiming at Dominic's back. They advanced through the foyer like a single storm. Enzo retreated up the grand staircase, screaming orders that no one followed anymore. His men were surrendering or dying. Dominic and Elena reached the second floor. Enzo waited in his office, glass walls overlooking the ocean, desk piled with cash and ledgers. He held a gun to his own head now. No, wait. Not his own. To the head of a terrified young woman, his own daughter, barely 18. "Back off." Enzo screamed. Or she dies. Dominic froze. Elena's breath caught. The girl whimpered, tears streaming. Dominic's voice was deadly calm. Let her go, Enzo. This is between us. Enzo's hand shook. You think you've won? Even if I die, the contracts are out. Every crew in the country will hunt you for that 5 million. Dominic stepped forward slowly. No, he said. They won't. He tossed a flash drive onto the desk. Everything's on there. Your offshore accounts. Your bribes to the feds. Your deals with the cartels. Every dirty secret you've buried for 20 years. Sophia sent it to every family head at Sunrise. They're already pulling their contracts. Enzo's face drained of color. You're done, Dominic said. Finished. And no one's coming for me, or for her. He nodded toward Elena. Enzo looked at his daughter. At the gun in his hand. Then at Dominic, truly looked. The man who hadn't slept in 30 years stood tall, eyes clear, hands steady, with the woman he loved at his side. Something in Enzo broke. He lowered the gun. His daughter ran sobbing into the arms of one of Dominic's men. Enzo sank to his knees. Dominic walked forward. Raised his weapon. And for one endless second, Elena thought he'd pull the trigger. But he didn't. Instead, he crouched in front of the broken man. My father begged, Dominic said quietly. The night your family killed him. He begged for my life. You laughed. Enzo looked up, tears in his eyes now. Dominic pressed the gun into Enzo's hand. I'm not you, he said. Then he stood, turned his back, and walked away. Enzo stared at the gun. At the open window behind him. At the ocean beyond. A single shot rang out. When they looked back, Enzo Vitali was gone, body slumped over the desk, self-inflicted. The war ended not with vengeance, but with mercy. Dominic's mercy. Because Elena had taught him he was more than the monster he'd been forced to become. Downstairs, the remaining Vitali soldiers knelt in surrender. The city was his again, if he wanted it. But as he looked at Elena, blood-streaked, fierce, beautiful, he knew what he really wanted. He pulled her into his arms right there in the wreckage, kissed her like the world was ending and beginning at once. I'm done, he whispered against her lips. The empire. The life. All of it. I just want you. I want peace. I want to sleep every night with you beside me. Elena cried into his shoulder. Then take me home. Hey, my warriors, my lovers, my beautiful souls. Did you feel that triumph in your bones? The way love didn't just survive, it conquered? The way mercy was stronger than revenge? Drop a fire in the comments if you're screaming with victory right now. If you're ready for the final part, the wedding, the peace, the forever, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because the conclusion is going to heal every crack in your heart. 6 months later. The Tuscan sun dipped low over rolling hills of olive groves and vineyards, painting the sky in strokes of gold and rose. The small villa Dominic had bought, far from the city, far from the life he'd left behind, glowed warm in the late afternoon light. White chairs lined a flower-strewn aisle in the garden. Only 30 guests, Sophia, Nico, now in full remission, cheeks flushed with health, a handful of old allies who'd chosen peace over power, and Elena's few remaining family members from her mother's side. No bodyguards. No guns. Just love. Elena stood in the villa's master bedroom, gazing at her reflection in the full-length mirror. The dress was simple, ivory silk that skimmed her curves, lace sleeves delicate as whispers, a veil that trailed like morning mist. Nothing extravagant. Everything perfect. Sophia adjusted the veil, eyes shining. You look like a dream, she said softly. Elena smiled, tears already threatening. I feel like one. A knock at the door. Nico peeked in, handsome in his tux, no longer the sick boy she'd fought for. Ready, Lena? She nodded, taking his arm. The music started, a soft guitar playing the same lullaby she'd sung to Dominic that first night. As she stepped into the garden, every guest rose. But Elena saw only him. Dominic stood at the end of the aisle, tall and breathtaking in a charcoal suit, no tie, top buttons open. His hair had grown a little longer, softer. The shadows under his eyes were gone forever. He looked like a man reborn. When their eyes met, his breath caught visibly. He didn't wait for her to reach him. Halfway down the aisle, He broke tradition and strode forward, meeting her in the middle. Nico laughed and handed her over. Dominic took both her hands, thumbs brushing her knuckles like he still couldn't believe she was real. "You're beautiful," he whispered, voice thick. "Every day you're beautiful, but today. God, Elena." She laughed through happy tears. "You're not supposed to talk yet." "I've waited my whole life for this moment," he said. "I'm not waiting another second." The officiant smiled and let them have it. They spoke vows they'd written themselves. Dominic went first. "Elena Rossi," he began, voice steady but raw with emotion. 30 years ago I lost the ability to sleep. I lost the ability to dream. I thought that was my punishment for surviving when my father didn't. I built walls of power and fear because softness felt like death. Then you walked into my penthouse with a mop bucket and tired eyes, and you looked at me like I was still worth saving. One night in your arms undid 3 decades of nightmares. You gave me back my peace. You gave me back my humanity. I vow to love you fiercely, gently, completely, every single day. I vow to sleep beside you every night and wake up grateful every morning. I vow to build a life filled with lullabies and laughter and children who will never know the darkness I did. You are my miracle. You are my home. And I will spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of the gift you gave me." Elena was openly crying now. She squeezed his hands. "Di Dominic Moetti," she managed, voice trembling, "I was drowning long before I met you. Working nights, watching my brother fade, carrying guilt and grief like chains. You saw me. Not the cleaner. Not the poor girl. You saw me. You let me hold you while you slept, the strongest, most broken man I'd ever known, and you trusted me with your vulnerability. I vow to sing to you on the nights the past creeps back in. I vow to fight for you, laugh with you, build gardens and dreams and family with you. I vow to love you on the easy days and the hard ones, in sickness and in health, in peace and in whatever storms life brings. You gave me hope when I had none. You gave me a future I never dared imagine. I love you more than words. And I will love you louder than any nightmare that ever tried to keep you awake." They kissed before the officiant even said they could, deep, joyful, tear-streaked. Rings exchanged. Pronounced husband and wife. Cheers rose from their small circle of loved ones. That night, after dancing under strings of fairy lights, after cake and toasts and Sophia's tearful speech about finally getting her brother back, they slipped away to the master suite. Candles flickered. Rose petals scattered across the bed. Dominic undressed her slowly, reverently, like unwrapping the greatest treasure of his life. They made love, slow this time. Tender. Eyes locked. Whispers of forever between every kiss. Afterward, tangled in sheets and each other, Elena rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Dominic's fingers traced lazy patterns on her back. "Tell me," he murmured, voice drowsy with contentment. "Tell you what? That I'm going to sleep tonight. That I'll wake up tomorrow with you in my arms. That this is real." She lifted her head, kissed him softly. "You're going to sleep deeply tonight, my love. You're going to dream beautiful things. And you'll wake up tomorrow, and every tomorrow, with me right here." He smiled, eyes already heavy. "I love you, Mrs. Moetti. I love you, Mr. Moetti." His breathing slowed. Deepened. Within minutes, he was asleep, peaceful, deep, restorative sleep. For the first time in his adult life, Dominic Moetti slept without fear. And Elena held him close, humming that same lullaby, tears of pure joy on her cheeks. Outside, the Tuscan moon rose full and bright. Inside, 2 broken souls, now whole, dreamed together. Of lullabies. Of children's laughter yet to come. Of mornings filled with coffee and kisses. Of a life finally at peace. And they lived it. Every single day. Happily. Ever. After. Hey, my beautiful, incredible souls. We made it. From one sleepless night in a penthouse to forever in each other's arms. From betrayal and bullets to vows and babies on the way. Yes, there's one coming, sure, it's still early. This is what love does. It heals. It redeems. It conquers everything. Thank you for crying with me, screaming with me, falling in love with Dominic and Elena right alongside me. If this story touched your heart even a little, please, drop a red heart hash in the comments and tell me your favorite moment. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because there are so many more love stories waiting to wreck us and put us back together. I love you all. Sleep well tonight. Dream sweetly. And remember, sometimes the person who saves you is the one who needed saving the most. Good night, my loves.